Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 119. We'll always have Paris.
Welcome into Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Ken Ray, here doing that thing we do time and time again.
Welcome into Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Ken Ray, here doing that thing we do time and time again.
What was that?
Oh, that? That was the Mannheim effect. Don't worry about it. It's this thing that happens. And did happen. And will happen. But we'll get to it. And are getting to it. And have gotten to it. Don't worry. It won't happen again. Nor has it happened again. Nor is it happening now.
Everybody's confused.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get to it, as I say.
Okay.
And,
all right.
And we already have. And it's happening now.
We will again.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's both repetitive and redundant, John, but it's also something to look forward to.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah. By the way, this is Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast.
Did we not say that already?
Well, just in case those people who are turning in the future or have tuned in the past and would like to tune in again.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So, Mission Log, yes, it's a thing with the
Today's episode will always have Paris approaching. Just, so quickly to the end of season 1 of Next Gen, just a couple more to go. And you know what? If you would like to join us, if you'd like to talk to us, or if you have talked to us and will talk to us again in the future, 3 ways that you can do that. First of all, on social media, Facebook, Skype, and Twitter, Mission Log Pod is the handle you can use to catch us there. You can call us at 323-522-5641, and you can email us, missionlog@roddenberry.com. And remember, a couple of places we'd like for you to check out on the web. Our own website, missionlogpodcast.com, where we have discovered documents and more information about our show. And then we have 2 additional distributors, trekmovie.com and Trek FM, that's trek.fm, who are so kind to carry our little show. So please do check them out as well. And remember, we may use your comments on an upcoming episode of Mission Log, or we may have used your comments on an upcoming episode of Mission Log.
Oh, man, this whole thing is it's so trippy. I, for example, and forgive me, it's not that I've not been paying attention. I know that is often the case, but have you done trivia yet, or are you going to do trivia?
Oh, I'm doing trivia right now.
Mind blown.
Today's episode, Ken, was written by Deborah Dean Davis and Hannah Louise Shearer. It was originally titled Paris. And Shearer was not too happy with the end result. I mean, you have to understand that they were in the middle of a writer's strike when this was getting ready for production. So whole scenes like Data in the lab were just incomplete as they were going into production. And production actually stopped at one point while new pages were written. It's kind of a rarity on this show. I think, there are a lot of things about this show that stand out, but Michelle Phillips, just for sure. Of course, from the Mamas and the Papas fame, wife of John Phillips and mother of China Phillips. And, in her days with the Mamas and the Papas, she co-wrote California Dreamin'. I would say that is their number 1 song, right?
I think so.
I believe so, yeah. Now, I also found it interesting that, of course, she is known specifically for her marriage to John Phillips and the forming of the Mamas and the Papas, but she was married to Dennis Hopper for 8 days at one point. So, yes.
Oh, Hollywood.
Yeah. Interesting times there. But I read an interview with her where she said that John Phillips was working on this song, woke her up and said, hey, you have to help me finish this song. That song was California Dreamin'. They shared the royalties 50-50 on that. And to this day, she gets royalties for that song. It's very cool. And she did not only continue on with that group, but she actually had a bit of an acting career as well. So and she was a Star Trek fan. So kind of cool to have her in this show as an actor, but a fan as well. Now, the character that she plays, Janice, would have originally been called Laura. And Picard would have actually met the young Laura on the holodeck, essentially correcting history by replaying that scene from 20 years ago. And it was also originally written that Picard would have engaged in personal congress with the older Laura. But this was objected to by people on the staff. And we have a discovered document that points to exactly that. In fact, it's a memo from Bob Justman to Gene Roddenberry, in which he covers a number of points with the show. But he very pointedly talks about how that would be a problem to allow Picard that little tryst.
I'm sorry, hang on a second. You're saying he was going to run for office?
Not quite, unless you're using run for office as another euphemism.
I don't understand what you mean then.
No, you've never heard that? Engage in Congress?
I thought they were going to do it at one point.
That too.
Oh.
That too. Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just, wow. I feel, boy, do I feel.
Well, there was quite a bit of discussion, Ken, about the morality of that. And in fact, I thought it was interesting that Bob Justman points out that here we have a moral character on a show to do with morality, and you can't let him do this immoral thing. So do check that out when we get that posted. And Ken, another little interesting bit of trivia here. So you know that I love all things French. Mm-hmm. And Café des Artistes actually holds a very special place in my heart. Now, not to be confused with Café des Arts in Paris. And they actually mention that in the research notes in the Discovery documents that I'll post. Café des Artistes was actually a restaurant in New York. It was in the Hotel des Artistes, right off of Central Park. And I actually lived there for a brief time. And the Café des Artistes was this fabulous restaurant in the bottom of that building. And it just closed very recently as of the recording of this podcast. So I'm sorry to see that go. But that was an actual restaurant in New York, not in Paris. They wanted to make a distinction that this was not a cafe that is known in Paris. There's also a hilarious note from the research department about Picard drinking Bordeaux. And I thought it was very funny. They say, make sure that no specific wine label is seen. But then they put a little side note. By the way, we all know that in the year 2073, Bordeaux is wiped out after the abolitionists get the bomb.
Huh.
Which I just thought was very interesting. And then at the end, they mentioned the Zanza Men's Dance Palace, and the research notes on that came back saying, there's no listing, but it sounds like a neat place. And I'm sure that we'll mention it again, but the line we'll always have Paris is a line from the movie Casablanca. And I'm a big, big fan of Casablanca. And it's worth mentioning that it's not just the line, and it's not just the reference to the Blue Parrot bar, which was Signor Ferrari's bar in the movie, that, of course, being the Sidney Greenstreet character. But the love triangle is patterned after that from Casablanca. In this instance, Dr. Mannheim is Victor Laszlo, Janice is Ilsa, and I guess that makes Picard Rick Blaine.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 119. We'll always have Paris. Wait, didn't we do that part already?
Prologue. The last few weeks have been rough, haven't they? Time for some R&R, which, as we know for the crew, the Enterprise usually turns into something weird. In this case, it does. Picard is brushing up on his fencing skills when a moment at the end seems to play back before his very eyes. It's like deja vu, but really happening right in front of him. On the bridge, the captain is told of a message from Dr. Paul Mannheim, a name familiar to Picard, but 15 years ago he took off from deep space while working on an experiment to do with non-linear time. Looks like he might have found something. Act 1. Deanna Troi notices that Picard is a little uneasy at the mention of Paul Mannheim. She also notices that Picard doesn't really like to talk about his feelings, but he doesn't want to talk about that right now. With a little time to kill, Picard goes back to the holodeck for a simulation of a warm spring day in Paris 22 years ago. He loses himself in, it's French. It's a kind of ennui brought on by a lost relationship. Once he's had enough, Picard goes back to the bridge, where more of those time distortions have picked up. The message from Mannheim, all relayed multiple times, leads him to another remote area, the Vandor system, where Picard hears from a woman in need of medical help for her companion. The woman's voice is familiar. The two are beamed aboard directly to sickbay. When Picard arrives, he confirms that this beautiful woman is someone he knows, and she is very pleased to see him. Act 2. The woman is Janice, wife of Dr. Mannheim. While Paul Mannheim is being attended by Dr. Crusher, Janice explains to Picard that all the other scientists on their crew were killed in an accident at their second lab. Dr. Mannheim is experimenting with time, manipulating that dimension, and those experiments may be having effects in other areas now, even light years away. The lab is highly secure, dangerous even, and Dr. Mannheim is a bit obsessed with his work, according to Janice. Beverly is concerned with Dr. Mannheim. He's getting worse. His neurochemistry is just completely messed up, and she doesn't know why. When Picard, Riker, and Data leave to strategize, they find themselves, literally, when the turbolift doors open, they find themselves from a moment before in the corridor, ready to step into the turbolift. And you thought Doctor Who made no sense. The three try to plan a course of action to determine what role Mannheim's experiments are playing in the time distortions. Of the two labs, the one remaining is emanating a lot of energy. Picard calls for an away team to check it out. Even though the place is booby-trapped and dangerous, never mind though, the distortions are so heavy that the transporter can't seem to materialize Data, Riker, and Worf. Another minute of this, and they'll end up like Commander Sonak. Act 3. The transporter problem is resolved enough to get the three back on board the Enterprise, but it looks like the mission to the lab will have to wait. Dr. Mannheim is slightly more coherent now. In sickbay, he tells Picard he'll help, but he feels himself slipping from one time to another. Also, yeah, he knows who Picard is. Janice told him enough. Data enters to try to talk complicated science with Mannheim. Mannheim's like, ugh, an android? But you seem okay, so I'll talk to you. Mannheim has tapped into an energy source on the planet where his lab was built. He's still not comprehending all the details, but Data assures him that the effect of his work has sent these ripples in time across the galaxy by thousands of light years. The situation is urgent, and Mannheim will cooperate with a shutdown plan, as well as instructions on how to bypass the security of the place. Before the mission, Janice visits Picard. As hinted all along, they had a thing a couple of decades ago, and Picard stood her up at the Café des Artistes in Paris. She was heartbroken. He was scared of what the future might mean if he followed his romantic heart rather than his career. It's a bittersweet reunion, but they're grown-ups now. Time to let the past be the past. Act 4. One person who may not be able to let the past be the past is Beverly Crusher. At least that's how Deanna sees it. She drops by for a visit with the doctor. Like Picard, Beverly is just not that into talking about her feelings right now. Maybe Deanna should come back and talk to them both. Like, maybe when they aren't in immediate danger and when their guests are gone. Picard orders Data to take on the away mission by himself. It only makes sense. Data is less affected by the time distortions. Data thinks he's dispensable. Picard says no. Quite the opposite. On beam down to the lab, Data encounters a whole bunch of booby traps, which would make you think they're breaking into Dr. Evil's lair and not some kindly old Federation scientist. No problem, though. Data uses his android reflexes to take out the beam-shooting welcome mat. Deep in the scientific lab, Data finds what he's after, a mirrored, distorted, powerful, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly thing. Act 5. Data determines that the time distortions from the lab are coming at regular intervals, the next one being in 90 seconds. He's got a way to fix it, though. He'll plug that hole where the energy source is located by dropping antimatter into it. Hey, look! There's some antimatter right over here! Data asks for a countdown, but as Geordi is reading off the numbers, he slows down. There seems to be echoes of him, and then Data finds echoes of himself, literally 3 of him, waiting to drop the antimatter. A moment of hesitation, and Data realizes which Data is Data, based on some data. That Data drops the antimatter, and what do you know? It worked. 3 datas are now 1 data, and the time distortion is patched, at least for now. In sickbay, the effect on the lab seems to have had an effect on Dr. Mannheim. He's coherent and in good health again. When reunited with his wife, Dr. Mannheim is excited at the prospect of going back to work. He feels so close to the breakthrough he was expecting, and Janice is all too pleased to go along with him. But before she goes, Captain Picard has requested Janice join him on the holodeck. Flashback to that cafe in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower we met earlier, the same one Picard was remembering from 22 years ago. In here, over a glass of champagne, Picard gets to right the wrong of standing her up so long ago and says a proper goodbye. With their guest gone, the Enterprise resumes course for shore leave on a planet where Picard knows this little bar. The end.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
So I'm watching this episode, and it occurs to me, the Enterprise needs a transporter chief. Someone from, I don't know, England, maybe, Wales, Iceland, perhaps, just someplace, you know.
You know, it might be the time effect, but I think we've had that conversation before.
Have we?
I think that and about the engineering chief. But yeah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, they could use a transporter chief.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice if they did, because, you know, every now and then it seems like you just put some guy there right. or got, and, you know, bad things can happen. And yeah, if they had just like one person, one, you know, sort of, I don't know. I'm just thinking that's a position they should fill.
I would like to see that happen.
Yeah.
That would be good. Somebody you could rely on.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't want to be the person who goes to the transporter room, and every time I go on a mission, it's a different person there.
Now, who are you?
That would make me a little uneasy.
In fairness, you know, keeping the ship together from one part of the galaxy to the other tends to be like, you know, who's up this week? No, it's right. Leland T. Leland, or whatever his name is.
Right.
They need to settle on one guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we usually don't point out the music just because that could really be its own podcast, and there are big fans and people who are just extremely knowledgeable specifically about the music of Star Trek. But this one I thought at the beginning was particularly cool because it kind of had that 80s horror movie feel to it. It was almost like, and I don't mean this as a slight, but it was sort of like low budget synth, almost like an early John Carpenter thing, which I thought was kind of cool. Did that stand out to you at all, or is it just me?
It's just you.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad to be that guy.
It's probably not just you, but if it's just the two of us,
yeah, just the two of us,
then it's just you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good.
Sorry.
Hey, more holodeck stuff here too. I liked Picard's first creation of that room, because he gets really, really specific with the holodeck. It's like, it was warm, but not too warm, and the sun was like this, and the room looked like this, and he's very specific, and apparently the holodeck gets it right.
Except it gets it right based on what he said, because later when they're talking, she's like, yeah, it was raining.
Right.
And it rained for the rest of the week, and so I'm wondering, did he not remember, or was that because he was already gone? And
he's already gone,
He's picturing how it would have been.
Yeah,
it had it been perfect, but in actuality, it was not what he thought.
And in this episode, we learned that the holodeck can be used to impress old girlfriends. You know, I'm surprised that she didn't know how he did it, just because she works in science, and this is a thing that is around.
Well, but it's relatively new. We're given to understand that it's relatively new when we get on the Enterprise. Plus, she's been out in the middle of nowhere for 15 years.
True.
I mean, she's like old country out in the middle of nowhere, you know, like he gives coordinates to some place, and then they have to give coordinates to another place. Right. It's like when you ask somebody who lives way out of town how to get someplace, you know, and they're like, well, go where Old Man Johnson's farm used to be.
Right.
Oh,
and then you see the rock, and then you take a left. Yeah.
Not the big rock.
Yeah. The not so big rock. Yeah.
Here's what I was wondering, actually, is Café des Artistes just a place that guys send girls to stand them up?
Right, because when he comes in.
Right. The holodeck has made one of the non-player characters somebody who's in the same situation in which Picard left Janice. Or, by getting it so specific down to the day, even though he got the weather wrong, is the holodeck able to access records for Café des Artistes on that day at that time? And be like, well, I don't know who this girl was, but there was a girl there who was kind of depressed because some guy left him. So we'll just put that in.
Wow. You know what? That's actually really interesting because, the holodeck, as we've discussed before, is having to interpolate a lot of information.
Yes.
It's like you say a thing, and then the holodeck is like, oh, okay, well, here's this historic record, and here's this blueprint of the place, and, I'm going to look in the old Farmer's Almanac to see what the weather was like, and then it probably looked on somebody's Facebook page from that date 22 years ago and realizes that somebody checked in at the Café des Artistes. Wow, I'm so depressed. My boyfriend stood me up.
OMG, JLP did not make it. Sad face.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Which means that the waiter there either has the worst job in the world or the best job in the world if that happens over and over again. Because either he goes home depressed every night because all he sees is this constant stream of women getting stood up.
Yep.
Or he's like, hey...
Or he's not going home alone every night.
He's not going home alone every night at all.
He's running for Congress.
Yes. Yes.
Am I using that right, by the way?
No, you're not.
Oh, okay,
I'm surprised you.
I think that's how we ought to use it from now on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a great term that I really hope.
Yeah, for clarity's sake, I did know what you were talking about.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to pretend I didn't now. I'm not going to not pretend I didn't now either.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right, you don't know whether I knew or not, but
I don't know.
Let's assume that I did.
Well, we do know that Paris still looks good a couple hundred years in the future, which is interesting because,
Hold on. We're not done yet.
What? Oh, okay.
I got a question about the holodeck. So,
okay, go ahead, yeah.
If it's not actually accessing Janice's Facebook page from 20-something years ago.
Right.
Does this, again, speak to how much the holodeck is able to pick up? We had a little bit of a debate on how much of the holodeck, how much of Minuet was the holodeck versus how much of Minuet was the binars.
Oh, right.
And what we decided fairly quickly was, it's mostly the binars. I think the phrase that we talked about was basically the binars were playing jazz with the holodeck. They're watching Riker, watching his reactions, and then, sort of playing more to that to get the information. I mean, to get to run the situation the way they wanted to. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that the holodeck is like, for some reason, I think a heartbroken 20-something would resonate with this 40-year-old bald guy. So let's put one of those in.
Wow.
And also a waiter who will bring you something very special.
Right.
It's also possible that this was just, now that you've told me the whole thing told us about the whole thing about the writer's strike.
Yeah.
They had a scene written where Picard was going to meet Janice, the 20-something year, earlier Janice.
Right.
And so once they decide they have to rewrite that, well, isn't it easier just to change your name and cut out some detail?
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Well, you have to think, I would expect that after the binars left, they were like, okay, let's get all the creepy stuff out of the holodeck where it reads your mind and, and changes those characters to specifically fit your emotional state.
You think they would get rid of that?
Well, I don't know.
That's what you want the holodeck there for, I think.
Yeah, but man, we're going to keep coming back to this about the holodeck, but the idea that it would be that intimate I have a note in here about how I thought that Deanna was being a bit too invasive with Picard and Beverly. Yeah. And now it just seems like the holodeck if it would know that much, we're like, oh, Picard looks sad. I bet it's a woman problem. So I'm going to create this now to make him live that out.
Well, that's what he went there for, though. Now, hang on a second. Is your Deanna note in this segment, or is it in the next segment?
No, it's right here. Yeah, right. Yeah. I figured, but just because I felt like as an empath, I get it. But to me, in this episode, it just really seemed like she was being nosy because what she's talking about really has nothing to do with the mission. She says, hey, your emotional state could affect what you're doing on this mission, but so far it hasn't, and it's really none of her business. And she's sort of imposing herself on these characters as opposed to Picard coming to her and saying, hey, I have a problem because I used to date this woman and maybe there's some latent feelings for her.
Well, but we know from their conversation that Picard is never coming to her. I disagree with you, honestly, about Picard. I agree with you about Beverly. Mm-hmm. I agree with you about Dr. Crusher. Dr. Crusher's just there, and maybe it's because they're friends. I don't know. But Dr. Crusher's just there doing her job. And Deanna comes in and says, hey, want to talk about it? And Beverly's like, nope. And Deanna's like, really? Because I can feel it's bothering you. So she basically forces her to talk about it. With Picard, it's different, though, because he is the captain of the starship. He is the captain of all of their destinies. Mm-hmm. And now he's like, running headlong into something. And they've just had some time distortion, something or other. And they don't know from whence it's emanating, nor do they know how dangerous it is. But he hears a voice, and he takes all 1,000 whatever people just straight to it. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. I think, and if she's sensing that kind of emotion off of him,
right,
I think it might be important to go, we may need to talk about why you're doing everything you're doing. I don't feel like it's overstepping your bounds at that point.
I do, unless it gets to a point where there is a problem. If Picard had actually been in a situation where he had lashed out at a crew member or made some very irrational decision, mm-hmm. then I could see her pulling him aside and saying, wait, this doesn't sound like you. Mm. But what we see at first is he sort of gets jarred by the idea of this voice from his past. And that's okay. Like, he's entitled to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I know that I would feel a little creeped out by Deanna on a professional level, just kind of constantly being around saying, hey, I know what you're thinking. I know how you're feeling about this. And maybe we should talk about it. Like, no, seriously, not now.
Well, really quickly. Not to defend this too much, but let's do a couple of things really fast. First of all, one assumes that Picard had some input into who's going to be on his crew, like what they're going to be made of, right?
Yeah.
Remember, Picard told Riker when he first got there, don't let me do anything stupid.
Right.
It's quite possible that he has an empath on the scene, not to just keep him in check, but to keep, or maybe this is a Starfleet thing. I don't know which, but we've got an empath sitting there as part of basically the command crew. Mm-hmm. She's in all the meetings. She's always on the bridge. She's the ship's counselor, and she's always on the bridge. She's obviously not for the people, working below decks.
Right.
Like, I just don't know that there's any upward mobility. Yeah, save it, pal, because the captain's got problems. I need to go take care of him. Right. She's not social worker. She's consigliere, mm-hmm. practically. So it seems like her doing that. And the other thing is he did back her off fairly quickly.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like she's not being so intrusive. Like, no, mister, we're gonna have this out. She's like, it seems like there's a problem. He's like, I got it. And she's like, nah, really, it seems like I got it.
I would still think that would make him or anyone around Deanna knowing that, and knowing that she has already picked up on it, and knowing that she is sort of ready to talk about it even when you're not, maybe change your approach or change your God forbid Picard is in the same room with Janice, and then in walks Deanna, and suddenly the whole thing shuts down. It's like, yeah, Deanna, we're not discussing anything that is relevant to you. So get out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. This is not a sticking point. It's just, I assume that's why she's there. I assume,
Yeah.
But again, though, with Beverly, only because he's the captain. Only because he's responsible for everyone. If it's Beverly, make sure she's not angry at the guy on the table that she's operating on. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
I think your dealings there end. But anyway, it's a minor thing.
It is, but it still weirded me out. I mentioned just a moment ago something about Paris, just because earlier in the series we've gotten the idea that people are like, oh, France? What French? What is this language you speak of? What do you mean that people had different languages and national identities? And yeah, this is 22 years ago to be specific. And sure enough, here's a guy speaking a bit of French, and we're in the capital city, and there's the Eiffel Tower, same as it has been for 400 years at that point. So it seems like it didn't add up to some of the indication that we had gotten before about French being this dead language, and nobody really got it other than Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah, no, that's true. They're finding their footing.
Yeah,
I'm glad though to see that they rebuilt the Eiffel Tower after the Cobra attack. That's really
right. Yes, very good. And Dr. Mannheim, not a fan of androids.
I didn't think he wasn't a fan. I just thought he was surprised.
I found it to be a negative. Yeah, it was surprise tinged with negativity.
All right.
Yeah.
Fine. Be that way.
He'd read the reports about Dr. Corby and just he doesn't trust him.
Or he may have been thinking about that idiot Sung.
Oh, that's very true.
Couldn't build a robot, so had to go and sneak off to the other side of the galaxy under an assumed name, hiding in shame, secretly building a robot apparently that turned out to be okay. It's actually weird because I thought of Sung, not because of Mannheim's response to him, but so Mannheim has these ideas about time being mutable, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And everybody's like, you're nuts. And so he very publicly goes, well, then I'm going to go set up in the corner of the galaxy and prove it to you. And I thought if Dr. Sung taught us anything, it's like if you propose an idea that you can't immediately prove, change your name, affect a disguise, hop on a freighter, sneak off quietly someplace else. But they've apparently given him like a whole planetoid. And forgive me, but this is where my okay, so I'm going to totally geeky. I don't care.
Okay.
The planetoid is basically kind of like an asteroid, right?
Yeah. Tiny.
Yeah, tiny. With an internal power source.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. that honestly, that was the part that annoyed me most in this episode. Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. There's a power source inside it that, working in conjunction with a pulsar, creates enough energy that he's able to tear a hole in space-time. I think the hole in space-time was already there because there should not be a power source in the middle of that asteroid.
No.
I don't think. Just like there shouldn't be a worm living in the middle of an asteroid.
Right. And I would say that if you detected that, you would not only not get anywhere near it, you probably shouldn't build on it and stand on it.
Well, I don't know. If you're trying to tear a hole in space and time, maybe that's exactly what he was looking for. Maybe that's why we've never been able to do this before, because we couldn't find that one. Yeah.
To me, it sounds like building a wooden footbridge over a volcano. Say here. Well, we want to study a volcano, so let's build this rickety old footbridge over this volcano we can stand directly over. And interestingly enough, Dr. Paul Mannheim, he wanted a security system, not just a thing where like you type in a code and it disarms the thing that calls the cops. It's literally just kill intruders immediately.
Yeah. Well, if you're not expecting them.
Yeah.
Dude, this is space and time we're talking about, okay? You don't want just any idiot. If the Klingons found this,
yeah,
or the Ferengi, or the Romulans,
just don't ask questions. Slice them in half.
Anybody but the Federation. But yeah, it's kind of funny to me. Did he not actually say, by the way, I forgot to tell whoever you're going to send down about some more security stuff? And Picard's like, I'll tell them. And then Data gets down there and he's like, yeah, I might have forgotten to mention, but it's okay because if we know anything from what was the one with the terraformers with the life home soil, home soil. If we know anything from home soil, Data lasers are no match for Lieutenant Commander Data.
Not at all.
Some of the music formation log provided by Warp 11, online at Warp. Blast. It's happening again, isn't it?
I'll tell you, there's something I like about this episode. There's something I like a lot about this episode, actually. It is the Get to Know Jean-Luc Picard episode. He fences. He had a love life. He's got a sense of humor. Now, that was actually fun to see when he's talking to Janice.
Yeah.
And she's like, so why didn't you come? He said, because I was afraid. She's like, come on, lie to me. And it was actually very cute. We haven't seen him be funny. We saw sort of an attempt at comedy on The Naked Now, but that was not an attempt at comedy on the part of Patrick Stewart. That was an attempt at comedy on some fairly clumsy writing, I think, so when he's acting drunk and, all that stuff.
Right.
It was very nice. I mean, it's really neat to see somebody who can act big, but who doesn't have to act big, play comedy in just like sort of a very small way. I mean, I was very comfortable in their uncomfortable moment, with the whole, you want me to lie to you? Well, I thought it was Wednesday and it was Tuesday. It was raining. It was a very nice little thing. He's also not completely happy.
Yeah.
Which was sort of surprising to hear. And it reminded me of your conversation, or our conversation, and I'm so bad with the names of shows, and we all know this. What's the one where Wesley was trying out for the Academy?
Oh, sure. Coming of age.
In Coming of Age, when we find out that Picard didn't make it into Starfleet the first time, when Wesley is learning, everything about his heroes, about the people to whom he looks up, it was very surprising to me to see that Picard is not happy, and he will tell her immediately that everything is not perfect. I mean, she actually says to him, it's just as you hoped, and there's a little bit of nervous laughter, and he says, not exactly, nothing works just as you hope. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to have Picard, who is a I don't want to say a flawed character. Well, I mean, it's interesting to have Picard say, look, I'm a flawed character. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with me exactly, but everything's not perfect either, which is not something you're used to seeing from your starship captains until you had your starship captains for like 30 years. And then they'll sit around and go, I hate the Klingons and my son's dead. And it's, you had to have them for a very long time. We're 23 episodes in, 22, 23 episodes into this guy's command. And he's like, we're like people, right? There's always something wrong with somebody. Yeah. And I'm somebody.
Yeah,
so
right.
There might be a thing.
Well, Picard is interesting because, and even in the note that I pointed out for the discovered documents, he's this paragon of moral virtue, and we have essentially only seen him as identified by his job so far. So it is. I think it's not only good. I mean, it's necessary to see him as a character that has a life outside of just the guy who goes to the ready room and comes out of the bridge and then gives orders. And, you have to get an idea of something deeper than that in order to want to see him for another season and another several seasons and movies and everything else. You've got to get to know this guy. I agree with you. I really liked that scene with her asking him to lie in the conference room. It just seemed very real, and it caught him off guard enough to be able to see him kind of crack a smile and relax a little bit in a very uncomfortable situation. That was the scene we kept waiting for throughout the whole episode, and I think it's a shame that we didn't actually get that a little earlier, so we could have seen more tension and conflict about that relationship.
I was actually okay with it because it was sort of a surprising nugget of believability or something. When Kirk, and I was even thinking about like Carol Marcus, when Kirk, when we meet one of Kirk's old love interests, how do we know? Well, because William Shatner gets sort of this like almost frightened look on his face, and then there's a little bit of discomfort, but then there's a little bit of conversation. And it all is okay. I never got the sense that he was actually in love with Carol Marcus. I never got the sense that BB Bash and William Shatner had a thing. You actually could have convinced me that these two, not really, not in real life, but I mean, there was a playfulness about their talking about their relationship that I believed these two people had this history. Yeah, I thought it was just really, and it was a combination of good acting and good writing and good direction, because they didn't do. It was underwritten, or it was under everything, but it worked beautifully. I thought.
There's something about that, again, in the notes where Bob Justman says, I believe it's to Gene Roddenberry, and I think this came from the very first draft about that character, that she was described as young and highly skilled. And he said, well, look, we might have a problem with this because skill is usually something that comes with experience. Experience is something that comes with age. So what do we have here? Do we have an older actress who's made to look younger so we can believe that there's something going on there? Or do we have a younger actress who we sort of make up to look a little older so we can fit this description that's a little hard to reconcile? And I think this is the perfect reconciliation, because you get rid of the young Janice character, or in the draft, the young Laura character on the holodeck, and just have her be Janice in the present day. I think the casting on that is perfect. Michelle Phillips would have been in her 40s when she made this. And and it's just sort of the perfect thing. She's strikingly beautiful, but she also seems like somebody who could be a match for Picard. So, well played on all of that. And the perfect little glimpse into what makes Picard Picard.
Can we talk really quickly about another character that we get to know something sort of ghastly about? What's up with Data being like, I'm just a machine. Just throw me away.
Yeah,
Picard says, we're going to send you down by yourself to this time vortex portal thing. Excuse me, the wrinkle in time, the loop in time, the wrinkly loop in time. Because I want to minimize risk. And Data's like, oh, yeah, you're right, because I'm pieces and parts. Toss me aside. That makes perfect sense to me. And I love the fact that Picard said, no, you're awesome. Here's the thing, actually, this is not going to screw you up. It's going to screw anybody else up, and their being screwed up could actually screw up the galaxy. So we're just going to send you. And then Data's like, oh, okay, cool. Why was Data just like, oh, yeah, please, because, you're human. And humans are way better than me. I am. Wad me up and throw me away. Sell me for scrap, why don't you? Because you could probably use that 78 cents to buy yourself something nice instead of me.
But do you think it's really that? Or do you think, Data so far doesn't have emotions. He can look at the situation logically and say, I'm the best suited for this, and I'm the best suited for this alone. And if I get killed, well, I'm not a living being. That's
the problem that I have. Yeah, you're right. He's not a living being, but except we've tried to establish back. We'll get to whether or not he's a living being later.
Right,
that's the whole thing. But here's the thing: he is more valuable than almost anybody on that ship. Just in terms of Starfleet, just in terms of his ability. And the fact that he was like, I'm a machine and dispensable. That's actually what he said. Picard says, I want to send you. And Data says, that makes sense. I am a machine and dispensable. What? How is he? How does he have? Even if you just run it analytically, he should be like, oh, no, you should send like 5 ensigns. Because I've run projections on how good these 5 ensigns that I'm thinking of are, and none of them are ever going to amount to me. None of them are going to bring as much to Starfleet as I bring just by standing here. I was really surprised that he said that. And, kudos again to Picard for saying you were so not disposable or, indispensable is what he said.
Or indispensable.
Indispensable, I believe is the word. Or is the proper word or something like that. Yeah. So that was just surprising. And me and robots. So to hear one say, I just want to take him by the hand and go, no, little bucket of gears. You're so much better than that. Right. Don't let anybody send you into death for no reason.
Yeah.
and by death, I mean, disassemble.
Yeah, that's all it is. Right?
That's a number 5 joke, by the way, because number 5 was alive. I don't know if you know that. Anyway.
Yeah, I know. I mentioned it before a little bit about, Picard really being able to mess with his ex-girlfriend because of the holodeck. And I might be going back to this kind of concern that I had with Skin of Evil. The idea that you could walk into a room and there's somebody who is dead and gone, but I could just sort of push a button and then there they are. And I can have a conversation with them and I can have an emotional experience with them, positive or negative, whatever it may be. I can kind of direct that. And I thought, here's another example, certainly maybe not as deep, maybe not as serious, but here's the situation where the holodeck can screw up your ability to deal with things emotionally, since you can program exactly the kind of experience you will have and exactly the kind of people you encounter and how they will react. You mentioned it, that it was a rainy day in Paris, but in Picard's recreation of that, it's like, no, it's sunny and warm. So he gets to change the past in that way to fit what he thinks it should be like, or just based on his poor memory of the event. And he could go back in there, and had he wanted to, he could have found a young Janice, and he could have replayed that incident, but in a different reality where he's there and he gets to say that goodbye. Is that satisfying? Is that then satisfying for the 40-something-year-old Picard to say, all right, I'll go relive this moment from my past, but I'll change the conditions of it where I actually show up, and then we'll see what happens. Then what do? Do you live with regret because your holographic girlfriend would have changed the course of your life? It seems like a really weird situation to put yourself into.
Well, you say, would he have been satisfied? No, he wasn't even satisfied playing with the whole thing. But this is part of what we learn about Picard as well. I mean, when she's having that, you see it as intrusive moment with Picard in the beginning. Deanna just, tells Picard, you have this thing where you just shove emotion down. You don't actually deal. You don't actually confront it. You just sort of, wad it up in a little ball and put it in your gut. So would he have been satisfied with that? No. But I mean, we all do that, right? I mean, there are writers who write to try to sort of work through stuff. I have a friend who swears. That's all Aaron Sorkin is doing. The 5 themes that Aaron Sorkin goes through all the time is just because something happened to him. And he's just still trying to work it out. Right. So I mean, maybe if he had a holodeck, we wouldn't have the West Wing. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like it's one thing to be able to contemplate that in your mind and then move on with your life. All right, here's this woman who came back who I haven't seen in 20 years, and I get to have that conversation with her, and I get to kind of unpack that and say, well, if I had shown up, things would have been different, and I didn't do it because I was afraid of this outcome, I was afraid of that outcome. It's a very different thing to actually put yourself in that situation, try to replay that moment of your life. And then what do you gain from it? Because, you step out of the holodeck and you're back in your real life. You didn't actually change the past. So is it just for the intellectual exercise of it?
Well, this, wow. See, have people written books on the holodeck? because I mean, we may actually have to deal with this with virtual reality to an extent. Sooner than we would ever have to deal with something like this with a holodeck. Mm-hmm. What is the holodeck supposed to be? I mean, is it just supposed to be a place where they go and play, like that time that, Wesley and all those kids went and had that really uncomfortable snow fight followed by the ski trip?
Right.
Or is it supposed to be, a place where you go fall in love like Riker? Or is it supposed to be a place where you go and work out your demons? Like, or is it just supposed to be like a simple sparring program the way Tasha used it? Right. Tasha, God bless her. Oh. Yeah. All right, I'm over it now.
Well, I mean, now we know that Starfleet does things like bizarre psychological torture to see if you're made of the right metal to join their ranks.
Yeah, but they don't use a holodeck for that. For that, they hire guys.
Not yet.
Well, who's going to believe that? No, you've never seen this room before because it's always been here.
Apparently, it's very easy to believe what's going on in the holodeck.
Oh, all right. My point is, I guess it sort of depends on what the holodeck is supposed to be. Like, is Jean-Luc using it wrong? If he goes in to try to work out his demons, is it just a toy? Now, remember, kids, the holodeck is just a toy. Don't try to do anything real with it. I wonder if we'll ever deal with the holodeck again. I wonder if these are questions that will come up, like how you run real people in the holodeck and whether or not the holodeck could actually take over the ship, and could the holodeck create something so smart that the holodeck couldn't defeat it.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, it might be. I'm just, off the top of my head thinking of a few story possibilities.
Yeah, good. You should submit those.
I think I already have, and I think I will.
All right. I also was kind of entertained by the idea of the future/past selves running around. So we do a very clever thing where we have the 3 characters enter the turbo lift. And by the way, some nice handheld and wide-angle lens camera work in this episode every now and then. And then the turbo lift doors open, and there the 3 of them are from a moment before. And they actually get to interact with each other. You see the reactions on those in the corridor and those in the turbo lift. And then the turbo lift doors close again. You go to a commercial a moment later. Are those other 3 still there? Because what do you do about that? Do you just sort of keep your distance until Data can drop the antimatter?
It's so cute to me that, like, when the holodeck doors open again, the 3 of them kind of peek in.
Yeah, right.
Like, are they still?
Right.
I don't know what it is about Riker, but every time, and yes, I do remember some episodes that are coming up, every time Riker comes across another Riker, I'm always amazed that he just doesn't pull out a phaser and shoot the other Riker.
Right. Maybe that would be the best. Yeah.
I don't know why Riker specifically, because I feel like everybody else can sort of be cool with it. I feel like even Tasha. Oh, Tasha. I feel like even Tasha would be like, looking at it going, well, she's pretty formidable, though. Maybe I shouldn't pull a phaser on her because she might pull a phaser on me. That might be her security work, coming to the fore. But every time Riker sees another Riker, I'm just like, somewhere in his like Cro-Magnon brain, I'm expecting him to just look for the biggest stick he can find and just beat the other one to death.
Right.
I don't know what it is about Riker that I think that, but I always think, yeah, no way. 2 Rikers enter, 1 Riker leaves.
And Worf, of course. That guy's ready to pull a weapon on anything. So
no, that was the beginning of the season. He's cool now.
Okay.
He's security chief now. You see, before he was following the lead of his security chief. What was her name? Anyway, she's gone now. Who cares? Right. Before he was following the lead of his security chief. Now that he's security chief, his more advanced Klingon brain is saying, maybe if we talk to them.
That's crazy talk.
And transmission.
So sometimes we find a theme in the show, and we don't know if the theme is intended to be there or not. But if you start to examine it, it seems so prevalent that I personally can't help wondering if it was meant to be the theme of the show or the message of the show. I'm wondering if the message of "We'll always have Paris" isn't "be in the moment." Like, be here now, basically, is kind of what I'm thinking that the message might be. And I want to lay out for you why I think that.
Okay.
Jean-Luc Picard is troubled by his past. He's unable to deal with it, in a way. He stuffs it down. Mm-hmm. And in stuffing it down, instead of dealing with it, he's always carrying this whatever weight, whatever baggage from the past with him. And this is why I think Troy has to step up in that first scene that made you uncomfortable and say, dude, you've got to do something about all the stuff you're carrying around. This week it's this. Who knows what it's going to be next week? You might want to talk to somebody. And you can even see that Picard doesn't like dealing with stuff because he's like, oh, you want to have a potentially embarrassing conversation? Let's do it right here where I can order you to be quiet. Let's do it right here on the bridge in front of everybody so that, when I'm uncomfortable and I tell you to shut up, you have to, because look at all these people.
Right.
All right. What plagues him is having not gone to meet the woman of his dreams. Why didn't he do that? Because he was worried about the future. And same kind of goes for Mannheim in a way. He is living literally in 2 times and is unable to function in either of those times because he's not present in the moment. He's not right there. This is talked about in the conversation between Beverly and Deanna. Beverly says, I can't compete with a ghost from his past. No one could. Deanna says she's not a ghost. She's here right now. Beverly says she may be in the here and now, but it's the ghost that he sees. It's, again, not seeing everything exactly as it is, but dealing, being caught up in the past. That's sort of stymieing that situation. And it's illustrated, this idea of being in the moment is illustrated just like visually, in case you haven't picked up yet, that what we're saying is be in the now.
Yeah, right.
It's illustrated when the 3 datas are in the temporal lab, and there's one that's slightly future, and there's one that's slightly past, and then there's one that's present in the present, and that's the one that can save everything. The one who's in the moment is the one who can handle things. He's the one who can fix things. The one who's not caught up on what happened, the one who's not caught up on what's going to happen, but the one who's here and now is the one that can actually deal. Now, I'm not saying that I live my life this way. I don't. But when I watched the episode the first time, I was like, okay, well, it's an interesting character study of Picard. And that's all we get. And then I was like, is that really all we get, though? Because, I mean, there's so much playing with the past and the future, but it's not a time travel episode. So, there's playing with the past and the future. Okay. So, I mean, when I started to look at it as a possibility of treating it that way, that is a message that I feel like you can take away from this. Do I agree with the message? Not necessarily. I mean, you have to know about those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. You have to know about your past. And it does behoove people to plan ahead. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's not just about being in the moment, but not being caught up in either of those things. I mean, being mindful of the now is also not a bad thing. So it seems to me that might be a message of this episode.
Well, you just said something that made me think a little more deeply maybe about Dr. Mannheim. I feel like, honestly, he's the most disposable character in this episode.
No. Data is, because he's a machine.
No.
That's what I heard from a machine. And me and robots, I'll listen to him and I'll believe. So
that a machine doesn't lie.
Yeah.
Because he can't. But Dr. Mannheim he's already uncomfortable / intimidated / uneasy about Picard. He says, yeah, I've heard about you. I've heard enough.
Yeah.
And here he is, this scientist who has been hard at work for 15 years, never even met Picard. Picard just says he knew of him. Right. And that was that. He's never even met Picard. And yet here's Dr. Mannheim feeling this bizarre, uneasy pressure in the present. And that made me wonder, what's motivating this guy to be so concerned about manipulating time? He's got a career. He's got work that excites him. He's got a fantastic wife. He seems to have everything.
Yeah.
And yes, there is the pleasure from the pursuit of a pure science, just to understand the nature of time. Mm-hmm. Great. But after you saying that, it really made me wonder about his motivations. Like, what is this guy trying to do? What would he do if he had the ability to change certain aspects of time?
Yeah.
Like, at a certain point now, it makes me feel like it's very self-serving for a guy who's never even met somebody that he's now very concerned about.
Oh, I think those are two different things.
Really? I don't. It seems...
The assumption that I have is that, again, he is, the trouble that's presented with him is the fact that he can't just deal with what is. Mm-hmm. So yes, he's looking for this alternate, whatever, trying to prove that time is mutable. Mm-hmm. But that's been his career. She actually says it's something he's always been interested in, which I assume means since before they met, which I assume means that he's not just pursuing this so that he can wipe, the line of Picard out of existence.
Well, no, and I don't think it would be something that specific and that petty, but there is something that just makes me think like, wow, he really would want to change the things that he doesn't like, Right,
and it nearly destroys him. It seems to me that goes back to the whole, either be here now or deal with time as it is, not getting caught up on the past or the future or the mutability of it or whatever.
But now Dr. Mannheim is ready to get back on that horse and ride. At the end of the day, he's like, yep. Time to get back in the lab.
That really bothered me. She was, I wouldn't go so far as to say that she was abused, but, really, baby, things are going to be different this time.
Yeah.
Really, baby, I promise things will be different this time. Mm-hmm. Man, I wanted her to go, you know what? To hell with the both of you. Right. Drop me off someplace else. Are you passing by Rigel? Maybe, or Planet Edo, or whatever, because I'm just done. I'm done with the both of yous. But no, it sort of bummed me out that he was like, oh, yeah, I'm obsessed again. But don't worry, because I'll remember you this time. Mm-hmm. That bothered me.
It was a little uncomfortable. I think the message maybe that I picked up is similar. Okay. Maybe not exactly the same. When we did our show about Too Short a Season, we focused on other aspects of that show, but then we got an email from a listener saying, maybe one of the messages here is just that you can't go back and right the wrongs. You can't relive the past, or specifically your youth. Look what happens to the Admiral in Too Short a Season. He absolutely destroys himself, and he's spent 40 years plotting this revenge, Yeah. And so one of the takeaways from that is, no, you what's done is done. You can't get out of that. And I'm thinking about the idea of you saying that, you have to live in the moment. But here's Picard very sadly recreating this holodeck simulation to try to just get a glimpse of what that was that happened. And again, this huge what if hanging over his head. Mm-hmm. What if he had done this other thing? And again, we go back to that scene in the conference room where he says, look, I was scared of that, but I was scared of this other thing too. Really, either way, there is fear motivating him in some way to say that, I don't know what the best outcome is. Do I stay with you, or do I go pursue this career? And either way, maybe there's not a perfect answer.
Yeah, it is weird to say that. It's weird to try to find one particular moral here, because it's not like things have gone poorly for Picard.
No.
Maybe the one drag for him is he wishes that he had it all, Like, oh, yeah, so I've got the starship, and that's great, but I ain't got no special lady friend. Whereas, if he had the special lady friend, he might have always been looking up to the stars going, yeah, I really kind of want to be out there. I wonder, like when she said, and this is not the script as it was written, but, when he said, oh, everything doesn't work out exactly as you think. I mean, she, if they had been sitting in a cafe, she would have said, oh, so what is it you would have had to be different? Because all we get is like, oh, well, I'm happy, but I'm not totally happy, because who's totally happy?
Yeah.
So so did it work? Did the whole thing, does it hold up for you?
Well, I kind of, the more I studied this episode, the more I wanted it to be better. And I feel like that's what the writers came away from this with as well. There are a lot of people who developed this show, not the least of which was Hannah Louise Shearer, who felt like it didn't quite gel. And there are a lot of people who said that they didn't feel the chemistry between Picard and Janice, that was written very differently, and it kind of got so toned down by the end that they didn't feel the sparks. And like I said, we see so very little of Dr. Mannheim in any coherent state that we really don't get his take on it. And that last scene with him, I feel the same way as you, is just the wrong scene.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be different. Oh, okay. I'm going with you because you're my husband, and you say it'll be different. Okay.
Well, it wasn't. No, I don't feel like it was. I mean, she does get something out of it. I mean,
of course.
And this goes to the whole Picard thing too about, well, he's not happy, but I mean, he is doing exactly what he wanted to do. It's just you don't get everything you want. I mean, she's in love with Mannheim. She's also in love with Picard, but she's in love with Mannheim. And, and being part of what it is that he's doing actually does seem to be quite a bit. I didn't get the sense that she was just like,
oh, no. I didn't get the impression that it was under duress, but it is sort of, I feel like you're meant to end this looking at Mannheim going like, wow, he already caused the death of another team of scientists, and he's doing this incredibly dangerous thing that it took Data to figure out how to at least stop what he was doing. And now he's just going to go right back. And I feel like you're kind of supposed to look at Mannheim at the end and go, well, he's at the very least obsessive.
Yes.
And maybe at most a little crazy. So I feel like this story was almost there. And I'm glad they didn't go the route of having Picard and Janice actually hook up. But I am also glad that we got the little hints of a genuine adult relationship out of them.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we got the character pieces out of Picard especially that we got. Now, the problem with the time distortion story, I felt like it started with a lot of promise. And then it just sort of devolved into technobabble. I mean, you literally could just sum up the last few pages with, and then Data has to do the thing to the other thing before the other thing happens. Okay, and then so he does.
Well, no, that honestly, that scene has bothered me for forever until I started thinking about it as possibly a statement of be in the moment. Because, I mean, it was always sort of like, okay, so now there are three of them, and which one is it? And one of them goes, oh, it's me. And the other two are like, well, of course it's you, because you say.
right.
But I mean,
don't argue about it. Yeah,
it was watching it and having them say that the whole, it wasn't a ripple in time, but however they said it. So it's it's what just happened and what's about to happen and what's happening now. Then once it's the one in the middle, because he's the one that it's happening now to. He's not the one that it just happened to, and he's not the one that it's going to happen to. He's the one that's right in the thick of it, and he's the one that can deal. So. I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying about the time distortion thing if you're looking at it as science fiction or if you're looking at it as science. But if you're looking at it as parable, then I'm okay with it. And that's part of what we do on this show is trying to figure out if there is a higher, not higher, but more, something besides what's on the screen, whether it's intended or not.
Sure.
That makes a lot of people angry. I don't know why. We say it's what we do every week, and yet it makes a lot of people angry. So, yeah, I'm saying that this whole episode is a motivational poster. Be in the now, man. Yeah. That's really not much of a motivational poster now that I think about it, man. To me, it holds up. I mean, and yeah, I mean, there are definitely more action-oriented shows, and there are deeper episodes, but put through that prism or viewed through that lens. The second or third time I watched it, with that idea already sort of gelling in my head, then I'm like, okay, well, that's all I can see now. And for me, that worked because it felt like it worked so well that it had to have been somebody's intention at some point.
I want this episode to have not been hit by the writer's strike. And another part of me wants this episode to have come, 2 or 3 seasons from now, so that we have a little more, a little more settled characters, and maybe the freedom that comes with having been on for a little while, that you can start to dig more deeply into the characters. Because I thought the Picard-Janice story was a great start, but then it kind of got neutered somewhere along the road. So that's why I think it mostly holds up. Like to me, this episode is about the promise of the story that could have been written, and reading between the lines of what their relationship really was like. And I think it's interesting to contemplate the idea of, wow, how does somebody with 24th century technology deal with a broken heart from 20 years ago? That was still just a really interesting idea for me, that he could go back and try to relive that moment.
Yeah.
So it was good stuff to ponder. I wish that it had all been better. And like I said, if this had been written maybe a little time from now, it would have been. Or if they hadn't been hit by the strike kind of halting them, it could have been even better.
Well, I would imagine that some people out there may have some ideas about, how they would like to have seen this episode go as well. And the good news is we have already given out the contact information. We will give out the contact information again at some point. And on some plane, we're giving out the contact information right now.
Whoa. Mind blown. Speaking of like the community, the way to reach us, the way to talk to other fans, we say it almost every week, and we need to repeat it, that Roddenberry.com, it's not just a name that we like because it's catchy. Roddenberry is sort of the reason that Mission Log exists at all. And if you haven't checked out Roddenberry.com, please do, because there's stuff there like news. Of course, there's a cool shop where you can buy all the Star Trek stuff that you didn't know you couldn't live without. But there are ways to stay in touch with other fans through Roddenberry's Facebook and Twitter and Google+. Just all kinds of ways to be in touch and have your finger on the pulse of what's happening in Star Trek and Roddenberry news, not the least of which would also be 1701news.com. So please do find all of that at Roddenberry.com and carry on from there.
And, of course, find us again next week when we will put conspiracy in the mission log.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com, and from the album Messages by Key Theory, free to download at kitheory.com. Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 119. We'll always have Paris. And transmission. Really this time.